Hey everybody, Josh the RV Nerd here with Bish's RV with your monthly-ish industry update. If the first quarter of this year has been any indication, we're looking at another very strong year in the RV industry. So, what are we seeing in terms of pricing trends? I'm going to give you some manufacturing kind of cost updates across the nation now that I have better visibility of that. Also, manufacturers' lead times. So, like if you place an order, I place an order, how long does it take to come in? How fuel costs may be affecting consumer plans. Additionally, a significant, potentially crippling new shortage for the RV supply chain that's more of a people shortage than material shortage. We're going to hit on that. Also, you may, we'll just say you could, I think this year you're going to say goodbye to these big artificially inflated,
we have 2.5 years of backlog for our company
statements. I think you're going to start seeing a little bit more of the real deal Evander Holyfield on that topic. And in a previous episode or two ago, we talked about how California implemented some legislation that will be, over time, restricting potential use of portable RV generators for folks. More states have maybe started looking into that, and actually, there is now early talks of how there may be some portable generator restrictions affecting RVers nationally in the future. Quick touches on those. Again, it's very early in the talks on that. Additionally, I want to make a special point to, it's not necessarily RV related, but to our RVers who travel, how you may actually be exposing yourself to some information and security risks that you're not aware of. I kind of want to source maybe some public opinions on some things that you could do to help prevent that. And I've always said you folks shape our channel. And so I've started chapter marking these longer videos so you can more easily navigate and jump to the topics that interest you and maybe skip over the stuff that doesn't. And if you appreciate how we take the time to dig into all this stuff for you and make it easier to navigate our content based on your feedback, I would love it if you subscribed and joined us next time. And if you've already done that, make sure you hit that like button. And please, if there's information in this video that you think might be useful to something like one of your social media type groups, please share this video into those groups to help spread that message. And let's get going. We've got some good stuff this week, month. I don't know. And again, this is a long video. I've chapter marked stuff. I hope you appreciate the extra thing I'm doing there because that takes a lot of extra time to get all that done. Anyway, like I began with, we are looking at already the foundations of another very strong year this year. I have really noticed, though, there's a lot of doom and gloom naysayers, probably because it's a good way to get views. Bad news always gets better views. Saying,
oh boy, you know, the worst is yet to come and it's going to be terrible and blah, blah, blah.
Things are getting better in terms of supply chains and all kinds of things overall. I mentioned previously how production has finally started to outpace demand and it has begun to heal dealer inventories. Case in point, shipments this January of 22 versus 21 are up about 16% versus previous seasons. So there is definitely more stuff getting out there and getting back onto dealer inventory lots. A lot of that is a reflection of the fact that there are fewer shortages causing massive bottlenecks out there. And when you hear, and yes, like if you ask me yes or no, is the total sales in the industry right now greater or less than last year? First quarter of this year was less than the year before, but only about 1.5%. Not like a chicken little the sky is falling amount. It's still looking like a very good, very strong year. I even saw where there were some reports that 55% of registered RVers have already booked reservations, at least one, for this coming year, with more expected to follow suit very soon as we get closer to the season where more and more parks are open. So I don't think there's any sort of big mass exodus from the RV industry or the camping lifestyle coming anytime soon for any significant number of people. I could be wrong, but that's not what the numbers are saying. So let's get into one of the big ones. You say the word pricing, people want to know what's going on. I've been hoping pricing stabilizes, flatlines, normalizes for a while because I've been very vocal about the fact I don't expect it to ever drop. Although what we are seeing, and it's been pocketed from dealership to dealership really, but you are seeing with more inventory on hand, more and more dealers, and you can see there's still some empty space, but you're seeing a lot more in the background now of my videos, right? With more inventory on hand, you're seeing more dealerships be more willing to open up the discount packages with customers and getting a greater discount, say like off of MSRP or something like that. That trend, I think, will continue through the year. I think that we are shifting back to a more normalized market phase. We're not completely there yet. But manufacturing invoice costs have continued to slowly climb. Whereas in the last 18 months, we were seeing every single month like a 3 to 5% increase on invoice. It's absolutely bonkers. There have been people who are like, man, I was looking at a 26-foot one-slide camper, and the cost of it from over the last year when I started looking went up nearly $10,000 in some cases. And yeah, it's been crazy. It is still creeping up a little bit, but it's been much, much slower. We're seeing, say like 0.5 to 1.5% increases per month. Still an increase, still more money. Don't get me wrong. I don't like hearing that either, but way less violent than it was previously. Now, there's a couple other things that I've been tracking in terms of pricing. I was doing some looking at, say like Blue Book costs and auction rates, and trying to find out like where the used market's looking, and it has been wacky and weird and all over the place. And I think that is not yet to a point where it's really stabilizing. It's still in this weird vibrating up and down phase, like motorized selling prices versus the say the previous quarter seem to be up in the Blue Books about like 11%. Yet there's more of those units in the used market available at auctions, with the average year of those units being 2009, which I thought was very interesting. Suddenly, apparently a large influx of older motorhomes coming in, which I don't know. I thought that was, very odd. Now, it's almost the exact opposite for towables. The average selling price of a towable RV versus say like the previous quarter actually slid down on average nearly $1,000. That's very good news for potential consumers. Like I said, I think that's a reflection of things aren't selling for MSRP. They're getting sold for discounted sale prices and more aggressive discounted sale prices now. Oddly, there were more of those units available at auctions, with the average age of those being 2016. So we're seeing old motorhomes come into the used market, and we're seeing young-ish, 5, 6, 7-year-old towable RVs come into the used market. But we're not seeing that big flood of what people have, there's going to be 1 or 2-year-old brand new RVs that people are just going to be desperate to get rid of flooding into the market. We're not seeing that. Again, I've never denied that it couldn't happen. I understand the logic people have, but that isn't physically actually happening at this time. Now, I'm going to jump a little bit because I kind of realized looking through my topic list that this one topic really, I think affects the other one. So I said, say goodbye to these arbitrarily inflated manufacturing backlogs. Here's what I mean by that. So dealerships, and whether it's a single standalone store or multi-store dealer groups, chains, whether they're independently owned, family owned, publicly traded, doesn't matter, whatever. They have been I'll say we, all of us have been very pressed to get inventory on our lots the last year and a half, 2 years, because of the demand outpacing build production. Well, as a result, I got an Alpha Wolf behind me, so I'm just gonna say this Alpha Wolf looks like 26 dBH. I might only want 3 or 4 on hand. I'll order 20. It doesn't matter. They're not gonna build me 20. They can't build me 20. But I'm doing anything. Dealerships were doing anything they could to stack the odds in their favor to get those units delivered to them on their lots. Well, as a result, the manufacturers look at the numbers, and when they go reporting to their shareholders, you've got a solid investment here. We have 2+ years of backlog. We're not going anywhere. You can invest in us, and you can depend on those dividends or whatever. But what you're suddenly finding here is now that the market is becoming normalized not violent, a little more manageable. What's happening is a lot of dealerships or the big groups are saying, okay, I want you to take, because I don't even know at this point, what we have on order, because we just said, or just, whatever unit you want, order 20 of them, it doesn't matter, we'll take anything we can get. Well, the problem is when they look at their own logs now, you have no clue what's actually coming in stock. So a lot of dealerships and groups have said, hey, manufacturers, wipe out my entire log. There was a case of one big national brand wiped out about $2 billion worth of orders just to turn around and actually re-implement the orders they actually do want, which wasn't anywhere close to $2 billion. So as a result, what's happening here is you are very quickly going to hear these insane multi-year production backlogs really dwindle down to more of the real number. Now, I'm sure they'll still have a good 12 to 15 months worth of stuff in there, maybe more, I don't know. But not 2.5, 3 years of guaranteed build and production. It's just not the case. And that kind of leads me to the next thing. Manufacturer lead times are falling a lot. Now, they're still pretty long. Again, don't get me wrong. But if you watch through the history of this update series that I've been putting out, I was telling you things like manufacturers are saying 3 to 4 months, and then they're saying 4 to 6 months. Now they're saying 6 to 8. And it got to the point in several videos, I asked certain manufacturers, especially some very popular brands, if I order model XYZ today, roughly how long till I get it? Loose idea. They go, I don't know. I'm not even going to give you an idea because it's so far out. There's just way too many things that could go sideways between them. They literally stopped giving us estimated availability times because they were just building whatever they could, whenever they could. All of a sudden here, I'm hearing brands, still some high numbers, some saying things like, 8 months, some saying things like 6, but I'm hearing some brands say, no, we're actually getting to some pretty good turnaround times to a nearly normal-ish, say 3 to 4 month custom order turnaround time. And again, it really depends on the brand you're looking at, the market segment, what it takes to build. There's a lot of different variables involved there. But not only are manufacturers giving us rough estimated times again, but those times are going down in terms of how quickly they can build them. How quickly they get to us, that may become a problem. And that is that potentially new crippling shortage that I mentioned. And this isn't a shortage of microwaves or blenders or water heaters or ladders or metal or anything like that. It's a shortage of people. We are really seeing a significant shortage of RV delivery drivers out there. So we're getting to a point where the RVs are able to be built, but we're seeing slow rates of those RVs getting shipped in. One of, I think, the major causes for that is a shortage of new pickups that, there's a lot of people who maybe would like to do it, but they can't just go out and get a truck capable of hauling big fifth wheels or whatever, because a lot of RV, like, you can't just, if you have a half ton, most RV shipping companies won't even let you haul stuff. Like, you need a 3/4 minimum or up. And those trucks are just in painfully short supply. So that's a bottleneck problem. At the same time, fuel costs are becoming a prohibitive thing for a lot of RV drivers. And with fuel costs rising, but their rates per run not increasing, a lot of RV drivers have said, we're just not going to do it. We're going to just basically not do this work. We're going to boycott this work because we're spinning our wheels. We're making effectively no money and driving all over the place and spending all these hours doing it. Plus we have wear and tear and things like that. So even though you have seen some fuel surcharges, I've talked about in some previous updates, those for the most part have been absorbed by the RV delivery companies, with very little of that money actually getting passed down to the actual delivery driver, which, we can't get people to drive these things. We run into a new problem. Now, shipments, again, are up for the first quarter. Things are clipping along, but if it continues, we may run into a whole new bottleneck. And actually, on a recent trip to northern Indiana I saw yard after yard of RV shipping company packed full of units that are built, waiting to get sent out, and they don't have a driver to which they can be dispatched. So it is a very real thing. Now, thankfully, there has been enough available that you're still seeing inventories heal, but there's a ton of stuff that's out there that hasn't made it to dealer grounds yet, which is actually pretty crazy to think about how many units that represents. And like recently, there was a 25% fuel surcharge increase. That doesn't sound like much, 25 cents per mile. You realize, though, some longer trips, that could be like to the West Coast, say that fifth wheel, that Pinnacle back there, getting it to the West Coast, that could be around $530 additional dollars tacked onto the hard cost of that unit to the dealership before it then rolls down to you as the customer. Because at the end of the day, it is always the final consumer who truly, bears the brunt of that stuff. And speaking of fuel costs, I really appreciate the information you folks gave me, and I want to kind of report back a little bit of a trend I saw regarding our fuel costs potentially affecting your plans. Here's what some other folks have said. And understand, there were a lot of different responses, and I really appreciate it. And feel free to chime in here, like, is the current climate of things affecting your potential travel plans? Is it affecting your decision to make a purchase? Is it affecting your willingness to drive distances, either to purchase the RV or to use an RV? But what I've heard so far tends to really fall into one of two major categories. The first one is, yes, absolutely. It has. We do still plan to travel and to, use our RV, but we are definitely going to keep it far more local as compared to the longer distance trips that we had been using. Some folks going so far as to say, for our big trip we like to take every year, we're probably just going to, airplane and hotel it. Okay, I can understand, I can respect that. The other camp are people who, I'll tell you, you really hit me and made me evaluate some things that I was doing in my own life. And that is, there's a lot of people said, look, I only get so much time with my kids. I can make more money later. I only get a couple years with my kid right now. And I'm going to go make those memories. And it hit me like a ton of bricks when I saw that. Because I have been a working fool for like the last 12, 13 years. And by the grace of God, I've got a wife who really said, till death do us part, and meant it, because I've been somewhat not present in my household because I've been working a lot. And I looked at that and I said, you know what? You're right. And we booked ourselves a nice trip, and I'm going to be taking a little bit of time off come early April. So you're still going to see a bunch of videos that I had scheduled rolling out in case you're curious. I just might be slow or a little absent in my normal level of replies on those things. So just kind of keep that in mind, because believe it or not, I am still the only guy capturing the video, editing, posting this stuff, commenting, or watching the comments, etc., moderating all that stuff. You're still talking to just old Uncle Josh over there. But I really appreciate how many of you folks have said, man, it's okay to take a little time to yourselves. Thank you. And thank you for the inspiration, and just sometimes you can't see the forest from the trees a little bit, But for the most part, it sounds like people are still planning to camp, still planning to travel, and I see that reflected both in those replies as well as in the booking rates at at campgrounds, which are already filling up really, really fast. Now, a couple updates ago, I mentioned how the state of California put in some legislation with a progressive rollout on restrictions up to the tune of eventually banning the use of certain types of things like portable RV generators. Unfortunately, it was legislation that was never really targeted toward RVers that is affecting RVers. And there's been a couple other states that have started talking about some stuff like that. And recently here, I kind of stumbled into this thing where there's potential talk on a more national level of, again, RVers kind of being caught in the middle of a crossfire. And it may affect future use of portable generators. Right now, for the most part, everything's fine, so don't have a heart attack. And again, this is very early. There's no dates, there's no legislation. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger, just sharing a funny thing that I stumbled into. So there are about 70 people killed every year due to CO poisoning from portable generators. To some folks, that doesn't sound like a big number. To some folks, any loss of life, if we can avoid it, should be considered. Okay, I'm not trying to get into that. But there's the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Their job is to basically find ways to keep consumers safe from potentially harmful products. And they said, if we can prevent 70 deaths a year or reduce that number, that needs to be a priority for us. And they're in early talks of coming up with a couple different ways that could potentially reduce those deaths. One of them is putting things like a CO sniffer, a localized CO detector on things like portable generators to periodically sample the air around a generator, and if the concentrations of CO get too high, cut the generator. The other one is, why don't we make, portable generators that don't generate as much carbon monoxide? There haven't been a lot of significant advancements in portable generator technology in a long time. They are something that does produce per capita more CO versus a lot of other things in their class. That's kind of how portable generators got lumped into the initial California ban. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'll leave you a link in the video description where you could go back a couple episodes ago and check that out. But the thing is, what's happening here is, once again, none of this is based upon or targeting RVers. RVers are getting caught in this crossfire because most of these deaths are as a result of using a portable generator indoors. And the way that and when I heard that, I'm like, what? Why would anyone ever? And then I kind of thought about it. Okay, so you have a house, you lose power, you're trying to keep your refrigerator up and running so you don't lose everything in the fridge. You go get a portable generator, set it in the garage, which is not properly ventilated, and you don't realize you're just pumping carbon monoxide into your home and poisoning your family. Now, on top of the 70-ish deaths per year as a result of portable generator CO emissions, there's an undetermined number of people who suffer long-term effects of CO exposure and poisoning, which can be just a whole host of mental, cognitive, there's some issues. There's some dementia-related corroborative evidence in there. So they're saying, even if it's not just preventing deaths, improving the quality of life for people is something we're wanting to do here, the CSPC. The thing is, again, RVers almost never use portable generators indoors. So unfortunately, it's something that it's in the early talks, the early stages of, but it's another thing that could affect us as RV consumers due to the way a product is not being used in its intended fashion. But unfortunately, it's being not used in the intended fashion enough that potential protective measures may be implemented and are currently being looked at. Where that goes, I don't know. If anyone has any more insights into that, anything more specific, I would love to hear more about that. Leave me some comments. I don't think YouTube lets you leave links off of YouTube anymore, which is where I think some people's comments have been disappearing to, because I don't delete stuff unless you're just being an ugly, utter troll. So if you have more information on that, maybe let me know about it or where I could find it. I'd like to kind of follow that story, because that's something that could have a very significant effect on a very large number of camping people. And now shifting gears massively to something completely different. Monty Python.
And now for something completely different.
I want to talk about the information and data security of folks who are traveling out there. And I mean, the RV industry, it's a travel industry, And I think this is something people really take for granted. They don't think much about. And I've got a little bit of a light background in technology that maybe just gives me a little more insights into this. But folks, you're being very willy-nilly and unsafe with your information and security out there. A lot of times when you travel, you may not even realize it, but you go to a place, you find out, oh, do they have Wi-Fi? Great, and you just use any internet connected thing, which is, we all got one of these stupid things in our pocket, right? You're on the road, you're doing banking and stuff like that. But if you're hooked up to a public Wi-Fi source, you are incredibly not secured in your information exchanges in so many instances. And I wanted to put this out there just as a courtesy to our audience, our travelers, and just say, be conscious of that. So what can you do about it? One of the things you can do is look into things like secure VPNs. They do potentially come with their own concerns and risks. I'm not going to get too far into that, but that's a potential solution. Staying on more cellular networks and off of public sources can help, although then you are consuming your own data versus something like Wi-Fi, where you're piggybacking off of someone else's costs, basically. So there's a little opportunity there. But what I would really like here, again, let's help each other as a community. That's the thing that I love about the RV community. I see people very willing to help. People who travel a lot, work campers, full-timers. Please leave some comments that other people can scroll through, and myself that I can even learn from. What do you do? What have you done to keep your data and personal information and financial information secure as you're moving from site to site to site, where you don't always have the ability to predict what kind of internet, what kind of security do they have? Because something I've really noticed as I've hopped to different campgrounds, if a campground has Wi-Fi, it's often very basic, and it's hard enough running a campground. These people rarely have the opportunity to hire like tech security experts to set them up with a highly encrypted network and stuff like that. Like, you just don't tend to get that. You tend to get something roughly the equivalent of a router that anybody could tap into, frankly. So just a little cautionary thing there for you, something to think about, something else for you to research if you are looking to do a lot of long-term traveling and need significant data use while you're going. I wanted to put that thought in someone's head, once again, to maybe just help them preventatively avoid a very not fun situation. So if you appreciate showing a little care and concern, if you appreciate how we took the time to dive through the blue books to get you some stats and check auction rates and things like that, if you just appreciate that we take the time to show you what's going on behind the curtain, please hit that subscribe button. Like our video, help spread that message. And again, if you're in some kind of like social media, like a Facebook group or something, where you think this information might be useful to those folks, I'd appreciate if you just copied and pasted that link in there to help share with them a little bit too. Any topics you're wanting to learn about, any questions you have, comments you're willing to share, insights you're willing to offer, like, the security VPN type stuff that I talked about. If you have some personal experience and something like that, something you'd recommend, let us know and why. And I think that, again, we all benefit when we share more information. I don't like having secrets. I want it all out there, and I want us to know that we're all shooting each other straight. That's always my goal here, being fair and sharing that information. So if that sounds good, folks, I got a bunch of good videos coming, all kinds of new crazy stuff, and I'll keep these little segments coming out as long as you're willing to see them. So take care, stay safe, have fun. Best wishes from Bishes, everyone.